Greetings. I'm Catherine Lake Hogan, and this is Genealogy with a Canadian Twist weekly webinar recap. It's a recap of our weekly webinar on looking for ancestors, where we help you find your ancestors in Canada. Now, this weekly webinar recap is just that. It is a short video, a recap of our free weekly tutorial webinars about Canadian genealogy, or genealogy from a Canadian perspective. Now, if you're interested in joining us in the Looking for Ancestors neighborhood, where we have our Genealogy with a Canadian Twist webinars, you can find all of the links below. We host a free tutorial webinar just about every Thursday, and we cover all sorts of topics related to Canadian family history or family history from a Canadian perspective. And this week, we took an in-depth look at the 1921 Canada Census, and this is part of a new series I'm doing called Back to Basics. So we're diving into the 1921 Canada Census and getting all of that background information and understanding what the enumerators were doing and collecting when it came to this particular census. So have a seat, grab a beverage, get ready to enjoy the 1921 census. And then since the previous census in 1911, of course, there had been the Great War, the First World War. And so there was a demand for social and economic statistics as never before in Canada. Let's see, the official date of the 1921 census was June 1st, 1921. And that was a change compared to the other census records, which had been taken usually at the end of March. So the official date was March 31st, and then the census, the enumerators would be going out and about enumerating people in the month of April. And of course, depending on where your ancestors were located in Canada in the month of April, it wasn't always pleasant weather. So with the change in 1921, there was the hope that because it was a new season, we were getting to warmer weather, that getting to different places, especially remote places, was going to be easier for the enumerators. Okay, so there was a change in who was handling the statistics, the census, and in 1918, the Dominion Bureau of Statistics was created, and they were responsible for the 1921 census. There were 241 commissioners, 11,425 enumerators. And then in 1955, the paper schedules were all microfilmed, and then those paper documents were all destroyed. So there are no original documents left of the 1921 census. And the only schedule that was microfilmed and preserved for the 1921 was Schedule 1, the population schedule. Now, in total, there were 5 schedules for the 1921 census. Maybe you didn't know that. Yeah, 5 schedules, and we only have access to the population one, which is good. But, as genealogists, I keep thinking, there's just so much more information, that unfortunately we don't have access to. So columns 6 through 10 had to do with your ancestors' actual physical home. So the home was classified as being owned if it was owned wholly or in part by the head of the family or by the wife of the head, or by a son or a daughter or other relative living in the same home with the head of the family. It was not necessary for the property to have been fully paid, or that the family was the sole owner of the house in order for it to be classified as being owned. If the home was not owned, then by default it was classified as being rented. and the amount of the rent paid in the last month was what was recorded on the 1921 census. So a little bit more information about the classification of the dwellings our ancestors lived in was provided in the 1921 census. So A is, so when you see these initials on the census, this is what they mean. A was for apartment, and an apartment was classified as a home in which the housekeeping is self-contained and the family does not occupy any portion in common with another family. T was for row or terrace houses and was classified as a building with partition walls running through it from cellar to attic and making each part of what is usually known as a whole house and having a separate entrance to each part. S was for a single dwelling house, which was self-contained house occupied as a separate dwelling. And D was for semi-detached, which was classified as two separate and distinct dwellings with separate entrances under one roof, with a partition walls running through it from cellar to attic and making each part a quote-unquote whole house. Enumerators were to state what the house was constructed of: stone, brick, or wood. The abbreviations BV was for brick veneer, PL for plastered with lime mortar, that was on the exterior, and then same with PC, which was plastered with a cement mortar. Houses constructed of cement blocks or concrete, the abbreviation CON was used. So now we're getting a little bit more information about what sort of dwelling our ancestors were living in 1921. And we can also see if they're keeping up with the Joneses. Look at the neighborhood. Look at the rest of the neighborhood. What kind of house was your ancestor residing in compared to the neighbors? And then column 10 had to do with the rooms occupied. And this is the rooms occupied by that particular family for living purposes. And this will give you an idea of how large your ancestor's home was. Columns 18 through 20 recorded important information about our immigrant ancestors to Canada. So column 18, year of immigration to Canada. And this applied to all persons, no matter their age or sex, who were born outside of Canada. Column 20 had to do with nationality. And each person whose home was in the country, every person whose home was in the country and who had acquired rights of citizenship was to be described as Canadian. Those born elsewhere but have been naturalized were considered Canadian. Those born in the United Kingdom or its colonies whose residence was not temporarily Canada but whose permanent residence was Canada were considered Canadian. An alien was classified by nationality or citizenship according to country of birth or to the country to which he or she professes allegiance. The citizenship of married women was to be reported as the same citizenship of her husband, even if she was born in Canada and her husband was not. All right, there you have it. Researching the 1921 Census of Canada. A recap of our weekly webinars that we have just about every Thursday. Now, if you would like to join us for the Looking for Ancestors weekly webinars, you can find all of the information down below. Click on the link and sign up to receive our free newsletters where you will get the information about upcoming webinars and also how to access the 48-hour free replay of the full weekly webinars as well. That gets delivered right to your email inbox. And if you haven't done so already, give this video a thumbs up, click on that like button, and also be sure to subscribe to our channel. And until next time, have fun looking for ancestors.